to the How to Sell More Software workshop. And this is a workshop, not a webinar, so we can be interactive. Please submit your questions or comments in the chat, and we will break occasionally and have a conversation. Eric Blumthal is helping out as my co-host, so he'll kind of monitor that chat for us. Joining, we're going to have a pretty big mix. We have some AEs, SEs, some sales leadership, some sales envy clients, and potential clients, and even potential partners. So I'm very excited to have fun talking about selling more software. Let's get into how can you improve your win rates, deal size, and pipeline velocity. And I do want to start by saying thanks. We had quite a number of registrants submit their software demo challenge that they'd like to discuss. These are ones that I'm pretty sure we'll get to today. And if you submitted a challenge and we're not going to get to it today, just give me a call. We can talk about it. And I will comment that demonstrating effectively after my second martini, I think I know the comedian who submitted that, and we're not going to get to that one.
I have no idea who did that one, Brian.
Oh. So most SaaS companies have this demo win rate bell curve challenge. The majority of their demos tend to show how the software works. They're teaching to use versus the top performer, the little majority over on the right there, persuading to purchase. So what's the difference between the two? Well, this kind of goes back to the beginning of my career. I learned the hard way about teaching to use versus persuading to purchase. I sold software to manage the pharmacy prescription fulfillment process, and I got my ass kicked by a competitor. Couldn't figure out why, but fortunately, Tom Modine, the star salesperson at the competitor, came to work at my company, and I got to see how he kicked my ass. He out-demoed me. My demo sounded something like this. Mr. Pharmacist, here's where you enter a medication name, and see this drop-down? It lets you know that the insurance covers it. Yawn. By contrast, Tom's demo sounded like this. We just filled 5 prescriptions in 1 minute compared to the 5 minutes it takes to fill 1 prescription, and you're filling over 200 prescriptions per day. Let's talk about the business case. I was teaching to use, Tom was persuading to purchase. And over the years, since learning that lesson so long ago, I've studied how do top performers win deals. And there's 4 key questions that top performers demos answer for stakeholders. The first is, how does it solve my business challenge? Second is, why is it the best option? Why is it better than my status quo or purchasing from your competitors? The third is, what's the business case? Why is it worth it? Can I afford it? And the fourth is, how do I get up and running seamlessly? What's the implementation roadmap? So top performer style demos answer these 4 questions. And the result is they conclude with the stakeholder continuing the purchase or the buying conversation or not. It is fine to realize, you know what, there isn't a business case here. Or at this point in time, actually implementation isn't feasible for you. So today, what we'll do is talk about how can you give more top performer style demos and close more deals faster. And specifically, the opportunity is creating a demo template. And that's what I'll take you through today, is how do you create a demo template? A demo template is what top performers show and tell when they give a software demonstration. And by writing a demo template, not only can you get your middle majority to start giving demos that look a lot more like your top performer style demos, your new hires will get up to speed extremely fast. So what's a demo template going to do for you? Well, let's pretend that your demo is this kitchen here on the left. You know, it's functional, you can cook in it. Right now you're giving demos and you are selling software, or you wouldn't even be here in the workshop. But by learning how to give your demo a makeover, it's going to be a whole new experience like the kitchen on the right, and it will be persuasive and compelling. But I hear somebody saying, you're going to script my demo? And my answer is, let's talk about that a little bit. Because sometimes people feel their demos are too dynamic to script. If I script it, I'll go off script in 5 minutes. But I want you to think of a demo template not as a script, but as a playbook of what top performers do. And if you think of top performers in any discipline like here, you know, does Tom Brady just go to play the game on Sunday? Like, no, the practice took place, right? So today I'll talk through how you can create a demo template that will guide everyone to deliver top performer style demos. And you'll have to practice just like any pro. We're software professionals. So if you practice and you drill and rehearse, you can give top performer style demos. You will not sound scripted, and you can easily go off script based on any question or comment that your stakeholders have. But you're still following the playbook, if you will, of a top performer style demo. I love Vince Lombardi's famous quote, practice doesn't make perfect, perfect practice makes perfect. And by having a demo template, you'll be able to practice perfectly. And I think this is a good time. I would like to open it up and find out if people have comments or questions about this idea of having a template and then practicing your demo. And you know what? Oh, Kelly, you joined us. Welcome. Kelly is a customer. She works at Slap 5. She's a top producing salesperson. And Kelly, I was wondering if you could talk about what's it been like to have a demo template?
Yeah, I was a little bit skeptical the first time that I talked with you about having a script, but pretty quickly came to the realization that, you know, I work at a startup, right? So it's all very, you know, insular kind of world that I live in. And so I felt like having a third party person to help determine like what some of the hot buttons that I might not be hitting, but should be hitting are would be really helpful. But what I didn't expect was just how like easy it was for me to adopt the script and not sound scripted. I've been using the script now for a couple of months, and certainly has helped reduce like the amount of calls that I've had. But it really doesn't feel scripted even when I'm delivering it because of just practicing and going over it a couple of times. So, yeah, maybe the first couple of times that I did it, I was a little bit more deliberate about using all of the words, exactly as they were written, but over time, now I can just kind of glance at the script and know where I am and what, moments to hit on and things to talk about. So it definitely was a pretty easy process for me, to start using the script and not sound scripted, or at least I haven't received any feedback from either internal folks who've heard me doing the demo with a script, nor my customers. And in fact, I've started hearing a lot more compliments at the end of a demo from the person who I'm selling to, just saying like, this was a really, really great demo. So yeah, to me, I'm all about that customer proof. So
Excellent. Thank you for that. Any other questions or comments about this concept of the demo template before we get into actually showing you how to create one?
Well, I have a question for Kaylee. I mean, before you did your demo makeover and now you have a demo makeover. What would you say is the primary difference between the demos, before and after?
Yeah, I would say the primary difference is that it would take more calls for me to get through our entire solution prior to working with Brian. So now, even in a single call, I'm able to get, from A to Z and still have time for questions and, scheduling follow-up. Whereas before, it would take usually almost, I would say on average about an hour and 45 minutes altogether, broken into usually around 2 calls to get through a full demo. And so now I can have like a quick discovery call, and then the next call while I'm doing the demo, it's just, I get through everything. And the other thing that's been really helpful is that, in the process, like I was able to send Brian recordings of me doing calls. And so he incorporated commonly asked questions or common objections that I was running into the script. So it's sort of like getting ahead of the objection and overcoming it before it even like arises as a question in their minds, which has also been helpful. And then another difference I would say is I feel like I'm being a little more prescriptive in my demoing, right? Like I'm not, just letting them feel, I'm not really fielding, a bunch of questions from them and getting derailed into like, well, how does that work? Like, it just doesn't come up as much. And I think that's just, that's right. Like the art of it, right, is somehow managing to create a script that keeps it really on track. So, and then I've had like, a 2-call close, which is like unprecedented. Usually our sales cycles are like 6 months long. And so, yeah, there've been a lot of changes, I would say.
Awesome. Thanks for that. So I'll teach you the methodology. And boy, I'm just excited to share this. It's really come together a lot over the last couple of years as how to go about this. And first thing that we're going to do is define what I call the demo puzzle pieces: ideal stakeholders, features and conversations, competitive intelligence. And using those puzzle pieces in step 2, we'll write the demo template itself. We'll talk specifically about how to do that. So today we'll spend most of our time in 1 or 2, and then I'll share some thoughts on the practice and refining in step 3 and continual improvement in step 4. Let's kind of start at the end, because Clockwork Software is a company that has gone through the demo makeover process, and these are the results that were produced. They went from closing 1 deal in 5 demos to 3 in 5. They cut the length of their demos significantly. The number of demos to close and the days to close both improved. Overall revenue per rep went up 38%, and reps have 900 sales minutes back on their calendar. So this can make a difference for you. These are the types of results that you'll see if you give your demo a makeover.
And Brian, I have a question on that.
Yep.
If I can. So cutting demo from 90 to 45 minutes. So that's, cutting it in half. And I know in the past when I worked with you, I went down from about an hour and 15 minutes to 20 minutes total for my demo. But in the case of Clockwork, as an example, because I know one of the challenges that someone said was, I want to give a shorter demo, but what if I skip features that my competitor's talking about? So would you say that when you cut the time of a demo in half, you're cutting out a bunch of features, or you're just spending less time training to use and more time just talking about how features relate to value or the business case or something else?
Yeah, that's a good question. No, when you're using a demo template, you don't miss features that you need to cover because you're using the template designed for that stakeholder. So, and we'll get to that when we talk about features and conversations and connecting the dots to stakeholders. So really the template prevents you from missing a feature that would be important that potentially a competitor would cover for you. You know, Jack, I'll put you on the spot because Jack actually works at Clockwork. And do you ever have that concern if you're using the template that you'll miss a potential feature that a competitor would show and mess you up?
No, I think, doing a demo within a shorter period of time, like 20 minutes, for example, the template should really just be focused on those key business challenges that we unearthed in the discovery process. And, I think that the perception of most people going into a demo is that they're going to hear everything about that platform. It's a kind of a new experience for a buyer, I would say, to go into a meeting and for you to cover all of their points in about 20 minutes or so. And so you might even be leaving the customer, I think, a little like, wow, did we really just accomplish everything we needed to in that, that period of time? I think they may be even surprised about that. But yeah, absolutely. The preparation, the discovery ahead of time, and the template all combined together should lead to a more efficient process. And I think, I don't know about everyone else in the room, but especially earlier on in my career, I've had this kind of habit of throwing in superfluous information that wasn't exactly relevant to the business case, to their business challenges, to their business at all, more or less just talking about all the features that we had on the platform. And now looking back on going through Brian's process, I'm thinking, well, I could do this meeting in 30 minutes, do another meeting in 30 minutes after that, and essentially in an hour block that I would typically have meeting with one customer, I can actually meet with two. But I think the preparation, the demo template absolutely would help with that.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yep.
So the information, the whole template thing is based on my book, How to Demonstrate Software So People Buy It. It's also based on a lot of research by Gong, by Forrester, as well as my colleagues' books, Peter Cohan, John Kerr, Chris White. So it's validated, I guess is what I'm trying to say. It's also been developed from my work over the years with all kinds of high growth software companies. And the first thing to do is make sure you're clear on why you're successful as a company. Again, everyone on this call is working at a successful software company. Companies are selling software, they're growing, but what we're talking about is selling more software. Before we go and write a demo template, let's embrace the reasons why you're successful. So look at your top performers and understand what is it that they're doing in their demos that distinguishes them so much that they are so far over their quotas. And just embrace and make sure whatever current best practices you have are built into your demo template. Next thing is to understand your demo performance indicators. This is a list of a number of the ones that we like to track when we work with our clients. And every company may be a little different. If you have pilots or trials, you want to look at the trial to close ratio as well as the overall demo to close ratio, for example. So very important, capture your success because you want to measure this in next quarter and the quarter after and make sure that the work you've done on your demo template is paying off. So let's take a look at step one of writing an ideal stakeholder definition. Now, typically you'll have several stakeholders that you'll sell to. There's this kind of key person who uses your software, for example. There might be that boss who approves the budget. There, in some cases, there's legal or there's technical review. So it is worth writing a definition of all your stakeholders. But to start, to keep it simple, just figure out who's your key stakeholder that you sell to, your ideal stakeholder, and write down their characteristics. This is not an ideal customer profile that marketing does, where they have demographics and the like. This is about the person to whom you sell. And it's a big, long definition. Like when we started at Clockwork, we said, well, definitely not contingency staffing or temp placement mindset. And if they had an atrocious experience with the database, that's really awesome for us. And if they worked at one of these large firms like Korn Ferry, Hydrix, et cetera, that's also good because it validates they do retain search. But after an hour and a half, this is what the ideal stakeholder definition built out around the highlighted first 3 characteristics that we wrote. And again, these are all about the person to whom we sell. We're doing this because when we write the template, we want to write to the audience. This is an example of SLAP 5. We started with a tenured customer marketer in a leadership role, has a deep understanding of strategic initiatives and goals, high collaboration with sales. But by the time we got done, this is what it looked like. So it's worth, and again, you know, you're talking maybe 2 one-hour meetings to do this. You probably already have buyer personas, so you can liberate some of the information from that. But this is going to make it so easy when you're writing your template and to connect the dots between your features and your stakeholders. And speaking of features and conversations, once you have your stakeholder definition, you want to write a list of all the features that you could potentially demonstrate. Now, this is a finite list. Even a client we worked with that sold molecular modeling software to scientists at universities had a finite number of features that they could demonstrate. So it's when you're showing and telling about the software, the dashboard, the workflow, the customer portal, the user experience. There's a big portion of demos. In fact, for many companies, when you do it right, you actually spend more time in conversations than in features. So conversations, there's nothing to show on the software per se, but you're telling stories about a customer who went from X to Y as a result of owning your software, or went through their implementation in 30 days, or had a business case that was so staggering that the software paid for itself in 2 months. So what is your master list of features? What is your master list of conversations? And this would be an example from SLAP 5 of their features. And side note, this is a screenshot from the Demo Wizard software that we've released. We're not going to get into the software today, but I'm mentioning it. If anyone does want to know more about that, by all means, reach out. But short of having any software, you can use a Google Doc, a Word doc, you can use whatever sales enablement tool you currently have, but some central location where you have all your features listed in all your conversations. In this instance, the features that are checked are the ones that they're checked because they're connected to the stakeholder who's about to attend the demo. And let's take a look at conversations. This would be a list of Clockwork's conversations. And again, the ones that are checked are for the stakeholder. In this case, it's to a partner at a search firm. So list of features and conversations, make sure you're clear on what they are. And then your competitors. This would be an example of a SLAP 5 competitor. And again, none of this is rocket science, by the way. It's just discipline. It's having some meetings where you're really getting thoughtful and brainstorming. So just put what you know down on paper. And this would be an example of Clockwork's 2 of their competitors. So we just put what we know on paper, and now we have the demo puzzle pieces on the table, and we can start to write a demo template. I'll also stop here and just double check if anyone has questions or comments about defining demo puzzle pieces.
Just a point of clarification, Brian. So you put together a whole bunch of features, all the conversations or success stories that you could possibly tell. And you keep these as individual components, and then you cherry pick from those reserves when you're building a template for a stakeholder. Is that what?
Yes, thanks for clarifying that. So, yeah, as you look at the list of features, one of the things you want to do is say, okay, which stakeholders would need to see these features, and to somehow connect the dots. You know, if it's in a Word doc, just use a little table or something. Excellent. So now we're going to write the demo template, and we're going to make sure that whatever we write, you know, it fits into, are we solving a business challenge? And another way to think about that is, are we teaching to use, or are we solving the challenge? And are we addressing the competitive distinction? Why is it a better option? Why is it worth it? And how can we implement it? So to write the demo template, you write each word, each sentence, each paragraph. And I can't tell you how important that step is. It forces you to think deeply about the message you're delivering to the stakeholder. And it's a process, not an event. And I'll show you some examples of that shortly. And you're just, you know, as you're writing that sentence and paragraph, sit back, read it, and say, okay, persuading to purchase, teaching to use. These are demo template writing guidelines that we use at Sales Envy as a team. So when we write a template for a customer, we stop and think, you know, should we use any of these guidelines? Have we used them all? Kelly and I had some fun. I think there's now 3 humor moments in the Slap 5 demo where we just know that the stakeholder is going to smile and chuckle, you know, and it's always a better demo if that happens. I'll open it up to any questions on how best to use these guidelines, or questions about what they are, for example.
Wordsinminutes.com. What's that?
Oh, yeah, great catch, because, you know, we're talking about delivering demos efficiently, time-wise. And that's a great site that's kind of self-explanatory, but just throw your word count in there and it'll tell you how long it'll take to deliver the demo. And, you know, if you put the word count in and you come out with 45 minutes, well, go back to the drawing board. See if you can get your demo to 30 minutes. You should be able to. There's really no reason you can't get a demo to 30 minutes.
It seems like these are listed in somewhat of a chronological order in which you would be writing this demo template, starting with correlating to pre-demo discovery and then kind of working your way through.
Yes, that's a good catch. I could almost number these, but yeah, we kind of start at the top left and just yes. You know, and then we go, oh, wait, you know, we have this ooh-ah feature, or mic drop moments. And why don't we move them towards the beginning of the demo, just because they catch your attention so much and everyone likes them. Yeah, so that's it. It's just like a checklist. You know, did we really compare the day in the life? That's one of my favorite portions, I think, of this is inserting the storytelling element of it. And then watching the reaction when you hit the mark. And they just, they literally lean in towards the camera, or they say, wait, back up. show me that again. To me, a good demo, at the end of a good demo, buyers actually feel bad. And they feel bad because now they have to go back to their desk and they don't own the software that they just saw. So that's a test of a demo. Did your demo make the buyer feel bad? Because they just want that software. So here's some examples of an introduction. So this is an actual template, and this is the scripted version. Again, you can make outline versions. And here's the interesting thing of using a demo template. The more you use it, the less you need it, because you just master it. Like, there's not a feature or not a conversation that you can't have with any stakeholder. But in this case, in the introduction, we built in some competitive positioning and an analogy to drive it home and a humor moment. In this case, on the revenue influence dashboard, we used both an analogy and a statement about how to solve a business challenge, basically in one sentence. And here on the revenue influence dashboard, we were able to address the business case in 2 sentences. Does anybody have any questions about how you might do this, or anyone want to brainstorm a particular feature or conversation in real time? Because I'm happy to take you through the process if you'd like. Okay. Let's keep going then. So, as I mentioned, it is this process, not an event, because it's interesting when you write a script for a feature, for example, and maybe you write it, you come back, you look at it, clean it up a little, you think that's great. And then you give a demo, and it is great and it works well. But during the demo, something comes out of your mouth that's a little different. It's actually better. And that's what I mean. It's a process, and it's a process of continual improvement. You'll have a great template on your first pass, but by the 3rd time you use it, you'll have fine-tuned it even more. For example, this was an agenda that we had at Clockwork, and it was like, yeah, that's great, works good, let's use it. But then the next day we looked at it and we're like, wait a minute, we can cut that from 215 words to 137 words. So we got 78 words cut right out of it. And again, we're saving our own minutes of delivery. Next up is practice and refine. So don't bother doing any of this if you're not willing to commit to practice and refine. And notice I have this as 3-week part of the process. And I will tell you that there's been an engagement in the past where, for a variety of reasons, we didn't get to do the full practice and refine. And it just became so obvious as the VP of sales and I kind of looked back at what happened. And we said, all right, let's fix that. We went back in and we spent the additional time, and it made such a difference. So I don't know how to emphasize the importance of practice and refine. You want to record some mock demos and tear them apart, like just view them and just, of course, talk about what works, but internally, you can be hard on each other and say, nah, let's do it this way, let's do it that way. Role play key elements. Every software is a little different, but there should be certain features and certain conversations that you just want to make sure everyone is super expert at. So that's where you want to do your role playing and your fine tuning. Any comments or questions about role playing? And I just noticed I haven't been watching the chats, so I don't know. Eric, did any come in?
No, there haven't been any questions. There's been some good comments, and also an observation that words and minutes is no longer doing its thing, but we found speech in minutes that does, so all good. I do have a question on actually, I've got a question for Jack now that, you know, like I said, I've never talked to you live before. So so you've been doing this a while, and I know you're like the sales envy Brian Geary poster child of best practices, but I'm willing to bet today, and this isn't a rub on the value of having these templates, but I bet today you use them a lot less than you did in the first year. And or you know, you've gotten to a point of competence and confidence that you know what you really own what was on that template and really make it your own and can dynamically shift. I mean, have you gone from, okay, I'm just practicing this template, this script, to, okay, I've done this so many times now, I really know how to do it and to tailor it? Or what is your how's your process changed, I guess?
Yeah. You know, going through the process with Brian of actually building out these templates, you know, a lot of the template kind of lives in my head at this point. And I at, you know, for probably the first like year and a half, I was reading almost verbatim off those templates when I was doing demos. Now I'm at a point where I'll maintain the templates and throw in some, you know, new features, you know, kind of update a talk track for a particular feature, but I'm not reading from those templates as I'm doing the demo. So at this point, you know, for me, a lot of the templates are actually being leveraged more as like a management tool and a coaching tool when working with new salespeople like Dane, who was on this call earlier, who's a new AE here at Clockwork. So, you know, I haven't been reading from them live during the demos as much as I used to. But that said, I still like to maintain them.
Right.
Yep.
Interesting.
Yeah, the more you use them, the less you need them. It's a little bit of a dichotomy. But Jack, you had never been in software sales prior to Clockwork either, so that was a whole new thing for you.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
definitely. It was a, you know, crash course for me in many ways. And I think, you know, the importance of going through that process for someone that's new is not only to just have the best talk track to say about a particular feature and position that feature the right way, but also understand like the logic of when you're saying certain things, you know, why it makes sense to sift in the business case as opposed to leaving that at the end. I think that's also important too. I almost, you know, wish that all salespeople who were, you know, doing demos and software sales could go through that process of building templates themselves, like I did, in with the help of Brian, because that process inherently has a lot of value to it. You know, when you kind of present a new, you know, when you present a template to someone who's new, and they're not necessarily going through the process of, modifying that, editing it, building it from scratch like you did, it's a much more different experience for them. So I was lucky in the sense that we were kind of building the groundwork and laying the foundation together, Brian and I, which was an amazing learning experience.
And Jack, that's an interesting point, and I would think it's invaluable to kind of own the experience while it's happening. But like you said, you can't replicate that with the new hire. So how do you address it? I mean, one thought that I have is, just require a new hire to submit 5 pre-recorded practice sessions, because people are so much their own critic that you requiring 5 recorded sessions probably means they're going to go through it 25 times and scrap the 20 that they're embarrassed to submit to you. I mean, is that kind of what you're doing now, or do you have a different approach?
Yeah, I think, when someone's new and they get started, it's more of like kind of a survival technique where, they're just trying to pick up what's been already validated as quickly as possible. They're just trying to read from the script and trying to get that script down and deliver it in the right way as quickly as they can. And I'd expect that most salespeople would be in a phase like that for the first several months getting started. But I would encourage new people to think very critically about those templates. And I don't think it doesn't do anyone good, for the new people or for the, the more seasoned folks who were perhaps involved in building those templates. It doesn't do any of those people good if the new people aren't offering their own suggestions, being critical about what's being, written down. Perhaps they're, coming from another company of similar experience, and they can offer some of their own unique insights on what worked for them in the past. As long as, we're all agreeing on kind of what the goals are, like condensing down the time in which it takes to deliver the demo. Obviously, how do we get to a close? How do we get to a next step? I think as long as we keep those principles in mind, we can start to work together with some of the new folks to change the demo template in positive ways. So I guess that all that to say, some of the new folks I think can still offer a lot of value for enhancing the templates that are already existing and that have already been validated as successful.
Right.
Yeah. You bring up a very good point. And in fact, I'm going to share my screen again and kind of go to the next slide on this, because once we have the templates written and once people have mastered them, and literally mastered them, the next step is the continual improvement component of the makeover. And that's just this ongoing recording demos. And here's the key thing, and that's what you made me think about, is every demo has the potential to cause the next demo to be even better, but only if there's a discipline on the sales team that upon conclusion of all demos, you stop for 3 sales minutes or less and just ask yourself, did I learn something new that we should incorporate into our demo? Maybe you learned competitive intelligence. Maybe you found out your competition raised their price or lowered their price. Who knows? Did any of the demo not go as well as I expected? Did I get questions we've never heard before? So you come up with your own little post-demo checklist. It should be 3 or 4 questions. And one of them is, do I need to let the demo administrator know? So ideally, every company should have somebody who's the point person for keeping the single source of truth template. And every salesperson, if you give 5 demos, hopefully you contribute some ideas to the demo administrator so that they can update the template. So again, every demo should cause the next demo to be even better, but only if you have this commitment, this mindset, this culture of continual improvement. So it starts by figuring out who's going to own it in your company, the demo administrator. Most companies seem to put this into the sales enablement team. And then what's the process for debriefing after every demo that's given at your company and just double checking, did we learn anything that's going to change how we go about giving the next demo? And if you're not recording and reviewing every demo, I highly recommend you do. Does Tom Brady watch game film? Probably. And the other thing is, since you have your demo performance indicators agreed upon, create a leaderboard so that you can track and reward when there are successes and celebrate the successes. Let's see, is Brian Slater still on the call? Yes, Brian, can I put you on the spot? Because Brian Slater is a extraordinary VP of sales at SaaS companies. And you have had plenty of exposure to this whole concept of demo template and using them. But from a sales leader perspective, Brian, do you have any thoughts on this whole process?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think the whole idea of, like Jack had mentioned, not having the benefit of going through the creation if you weren't, originally part of it. But even without that, the benefit is to shorten onboarding cycles, to bring someone up to speed much, much quicker, because at minimum, there's a basis for knowing what works and implementing what's a proven remedy for success. So while you might not get the same in-depth kind of crash course, one, you don't have to waste your sales minutes doing it, which, Jack, I know you spent tremendous sales minutes contributing to Clockwork's script. But, certainly reducing the onboarding cycle is invaluable. Yeah.
That's really, like, if someone were to say to me, where does this work the most? My temptation is to say the class, well, everybody should use it, but it's new hires in early career or early stage career that this just makes perfect sense. And literally, if you give a new hire a demo template and you say, these are the best practices of top performers, it makes their life so easy. They can embrace it and run with it and literally be a demo proficient in a month. And by the way, that at that point, it gets fun too. The once you have your core template and now you're doing that like extra fine tuning, and that's kind of what's happening with Kelly at Slap 5. Is I just feel it's the fun part, because you're just taking it to the next level, and you're adding some research findings. Maybe you're adding the humor moments that we talked about. So
I have questions, Brian.
Okay, shoot.
Well, I really have two. One is any best practices for powerful introductions?
Absolutely. Peter Cohen in his book Great Demo really drives home start at the end. And what he means by that is his observation over the years is many people kind of build up to the crescendo at the end where they, for example, show the dashboard. And wait a minute, let's just consider moving that to the beginning. In fact, actually, Kelly, that's exactly what we did at Slap 5. They have this amazing dashboard that just shows definitive results that their software produces. And it was kind of being shown at the end like a ta-da moment. But instead, it's just open with your ta-da. Yeah, so that's, I think that, and then what I call the ooh-ah features or the mic drop features, consider them as something you might want to open with. And the only other one, I guess, would be get creative. With a client that did live demos back in the day, they sold software to manage the wholesale distribution process. So it was like a warehouse counter sale. And they did a little role play at the beginning of their demo of a contractor coming into the counter and making a purchase without the software, and then the same thing with the software. And they did that in like 5 minutes. And that was a great opening. It just drove home the power of that counter management software for wholesale distributors.
Could I chime in with ones I can't stand?
Yes.
Giving me a list of all your clients as the first slide. That drives me nuts. And not recapping what we talked about in discovery as the point of our demonstration.
Yeah.
It's like, even, it sounds so simple, but even if you're able to repeat back to the client or potential client rather, what was discussed in discovery and the fact that that's going to be the focus of your demonstration separates you from a lot of salespeople very, very quickly. That's it. Just my gripes today.
No, it's spot on. Thank you.
And I have one thing to add. So yes, we sort of elevated one of the mic drop moments to the beginning of my demo, which has been great. Especially if there's like time even at the end of the discovery call, sometimes we'll go into that. But another thing like that was a little complex about our sale is that there's sort of like a paradigm shift that we have to guide people on, because our software has sort of just like a new concept around how to do customer marketing and advocacy. And so like in the very beginning, in my introductory sort of about me, that moment actually has been really helpful in getting people philosophically aligned with, you know, our approach to you know, this industry essentially. And I find that, you know, the intent, I never expected that people would like stop me after my like introductory spiel before I start, you know, getting a little bit into the demo, but almost on every call, people are like, oh my gosh, like it opens up, you know, the floodgates for them to tell stories about experiences where they had where, you know, things didn't work like, you know, in the traditional way in the past. And it's also been a really nice just rapport builder to include that in the beginning of the call.
Haley, that's a really important point. Like this whole idea of a strategic narrative shift where there's an old way of doing things and there's a new way of doing things. And that new way has happened, whether you're part of it or not. And we're the new way is so important. Gary, there's a consultant named Andy Raskin who talks about that a lot, strategic narratives. And I think it applies to Clockwork. Clearly it applies to Slap 5. That's really powerful when you talk about we're addressing a fundamental shift in what's going on in technology and you want to get ahead of the curve. That's extremely compelling. No one wants to be left behind. And thanks for bringing that up, Kaylee. I love when people lead with that.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, we're obviously not out of conversation, but we are up against the clock when it comes to time. So yeah, give your demo a makeover and enable everyone to demonstrate like a top performer. It's like having a clone machine. And if you're like, let's have a conversation about your demo situation. I'm going to schedule another one of these in 2 weeks. My hope is to literally every 2 weeks have a workshop of this nature. And the next agenda, I will ask people to submit recordings of demos, and we'll literally do a demo makeover in real time. And literally, yeah, just like today, have a conversation, figure some things out. And I encourage you to all jot down at least 3 things you'll do differently as soon as tomorrow with regard to your demo. And please make an appointment with yourself to get started on your own demo makeover. And with that, I'll say, go sell more software. Thanks everyone for joining. Take care.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Ryan.
Bye.